If you're tired of growing parsnips, then fear not. How about trying to build your own rocket instead? Today's video is sponsored by the game Little Rocket Lab, and this is a cozy management game all about building your very own rocket and running a laboratory. Over the next 30 days, I'll be sharing my journey in the game, the good and the bad, and you'll get to see all the experiments, tinkering, and watch this tiny world come to life. Little Rocket Lab will be available on October 7th for PC via Steam and on Xbox, and it is included in the Game Pass. I've put a link in the description for you to check it out, so please, if you want to learn more, go ahead. Don't forget to like and also subscribe, but let's see if I can become the next best rocket scientist. Straight into day one, and this is where we first meet a young Morgan who's being forced to leave her robot lab. Before she goes, she promises to return someday and finish what she started. Fast forward 10 years later, and Morgan is finally heading back to St. Ambrose. On the train, she bumps into an old friend who tells me things haven't been going so well in town. When I arrive at my aunt's house, I find a poor broken robot waiting for me. I think this is a sign of things to come. I managed to track down a few missing pieces, but that's still not enough to get him back up and running. Eager to find Auntie and, of course, the rocket, I set off to look for her. Instead of letting me straight at the rocket, Auntie instead hands me a massive hammer and insists I try it out, so naturally I start smashing things. Next up, I had to do my first crafting task, create a conveyor belt. This one got off to a little bit of a rocky start, but I soon got the hang of it. Then came my first furnace, which I quickly filled with ores for smelting. Auntie introduced me to the assembler next. This one's a machine that can automatically produce items. I'm here for that. I worked late into the night building my very first system, but soon enough the conveyor belts were rolling everywhere, and before I knew it, the clock had begun to turn red. I think this is a clear sign that it's way past my bedtime and time to call it a night. And look at this, one day without an accident. Let's see how long that lasts. When I woke up the next morning, I realized my bedroom was actually covered in random bits of junk, bolts, and scraps. To make things even weirder, amongst the debris was a tennis ball. Thank you, mysterious gifter, I guess. Then a letter came from Cliff at the general store. He mentioned backpacks, and honestly, that's all I needed to hear. I do love a good backpack upgrade. Once I'd sorted through the chaos, I jumped straight back into gathering materials for the conveyor belts, but just when things were rolling smoothly, Auntie dropped a bombshell. We cannot work on the rocket. Excuse me? The rocket was the very reason I returned to this town. Auntie is acting a little bit secretive. Something is definitely sus about this. Auntie brushed off my concerns and sent me to talk to Rebecca at the university to try and help fix Pico the robot. Of course, before heading out, I had to check the rocket lab for myself, and yet these doors are locked tight. Rebecca was surprisingly nice though, and she explained how research worked. She also offered to help me craft some fancy new equipment, a drill for starters. The catch, I need a lot of gears, like a whole lot of gears. So off I went scavenging. Along the way, I made some unexpected discoveries: a fiddlehead fern, this one seems very familiar, an eagle feather, and a gravestone with the name Leda. Could that be my mum's grave? Anyway, deep thoughts aside, I finally gathered all 60 gears and handed them in. By then, the day had completely slipped away, and I missed speaking to Rebecca at the desk before she closed. On the way home, I stumbled across a bakery. If they sell cheesecake, I may never leave this town again. I spent the rest of the evening tidying up the plaza near my house. As I headed to bed, I noticed another tennis ball waiting for me. Okay, mysterious tennis ball fairy, you have got my attention. What is going on? Another morning, another tennis ball. At this point, I am starting to wonder if this is going to become a thing. Should I start a collection? Today's mail brought a letter from Angela, who's running the local furniture shop. Shopping? Say no more. I'll be there faster than you can say matching end tables. And sure enough, I showed up very soon after, just in time to interrupt what looked like a heated sibling tiff between Angela and her brother Michael. Honestly, I think I'm going to like Angela a lot. She seems quite sassy. She kindly gifted me some paint cleaner, a bit of an odd choice of a first present, but hey, it's the thought that counts. Her shop had some gorgeous items too. I also spotted some caution paint on display. Why do I feel like that is going to come in seriously handy later? Michael, on the other hand, seems a little grumpy. He's hoping he warms up eventually. Back to business, and Rebecca handed me the blueprint for my shiny new drill, the next step to unlock tier 2 research. My inner engineer is thrilled. Whilst running errands, I popped into a few shops and met some more of the locals. Cliff roped me into doing some deliveries, and this does sound like a good way to get a bit of cash for all of that furniture that I was eyeing up. To keep the gears turning, I set up a bearing conveyor belt system and crafted my first drill. Now that iron is flowing nicely. It was getting late, but I couldn't resist starting one more project, a windmill for Pete. So off I went to the beach and stopped off in the tavern. The tavern seems to be buzzing, and there was a few new faces here. I tried and failed to figure out how to actually give Pete his windmill, but at least I found a rainbow shell to lift my spirits. Note to self, return to Pete tomorrow. I finally made my way back home and promptly passed out at the door. This is typical me behavior. Today started with a confrontation. I finally asked Auntie about the mysterious tennis balls, and well, it turns out somehow now I've adopted a dog. I would have preferred a cat, but we're gonna embrace this anyway. I might not have any dog food yet, but I do have an endless supply of tennis balls, so I do think that I'm potentially off to a good dog owner start. After that little surprise, I checked in on my drill, and wow, this thing is absolutely flying. Production is doing so good. My bearing supply is looking great too, so I dropped off the latest batch at the university before heading back out to search for more gears. Speaking of unfinished business, I finally managed to deliver that windmill to Pete. Turns out I just had to talk to him again. You know, that was not obvious at all. Once the gear grind was done, I unlocked some shiny new items. The next phase of progress begins, and we're on to copper bars. I set up my copper mining and got to work crafting heat sinks. To keep things running smoothly, I also started a new mining area for coal. It's definitely not the prettiest setup. There's like wires, belts, everything kind of scattered everywhere, and it looks a little bit of a mess, but hey, it gets the job done. This game is definitely going to be about productivity over prettiness. I spent the morning collecting resources, you know, the usual grind. Eventually, I gathered enough to deliver everything to Rebecca, and that's when something unexpected happened. These strange chutes appeared out of nowhere. Turns out they'll be where I'll be delivering hundreds of components for the university research. Guess it's time to seriously ramp up production. Next, I turned my attention to something far more exciting, bringing little Pico the robot back to life. To do that, I had to craft my first level 2 assembler and build the status needed for his revival. Then, just like that, Pico was alive. And who would have guessed it, Pico held the key to unlocking the lab so we could finally repair the rocket. But my excitement did not last long. The lab was in total disrepair. My new mission is to restore the power to the silo and get these lights back on. I had a few resources on hand, but clearly I'm going to need a lot more. While I was tinkering away, I realized something embarrassing. I hadn't even crafted a chest yet. Somehow, I've been managing with a chaotic inventory full of random parts flying left, right, and center. I'm so not organized. I woke up and decided it's time to do some organizing to clean up the inside of my house. Then numpty me realized that there is a chest in here and it had some freebies inside. Cliff sent me a letter kindly telling me that they are now selling donation bins, although I'm not sure I have any components that are ready for giving away just yet. I had enough gears to complete the splitter at the university, and I decided to check my quests and realized I should probably focus on trying to speak to everyone in the town. Some of the residents were definitely friendlier than others. I finally stumbled across the flower shop, which is adorable, and unfortunately the mother-daughter argument that was happening inside wasn't so cute. Poor Dottie and Tia. It was getting late and I hadn't quite found everyone, so where does one go to hang out in these games? The inn, of course. Luckily Michael was here and I had a drill for him. In return, he gave me some special gloves, and the final person I needed to meet was William, and for finally unlocking this, I obtained 500 coins. Time to quickly run back home before passing out yet again. On the 7th day, I decided it was time to look at the bigger picture. The area around the silo was an absolute mess, so I started the whole day clearing the space and setting up for my proper level 2 assembly line. It took the whole day, a full marathon of hauling things, making conveyor belts, and trying to make something look semi-organized. But by the end of it, everything was up and running, and I stood there for a second to admire my hard work. The next morning brought with it rain, a lot of rain, but despite the gloomy weather, I made big progress repairing the silo until I realized my current setup wasn't going to cut it. I needed small motors and this assembly line just wasn't ready for that. So I tore half of it apart and rebuilt it from scratch. After some serious tinkering and a few mild frustrations, the motors were finally up and running. I was so close to finishing the silo repair, but honestly, I got hopelessly sidetracked working on my assembly lines again. Before I knew it, I had passed out mid-project. This is becoming a recurring problem. The next morning, I gave myself a good talking to. It went something like this: Morgan, stop staying up so late. Then I decided my drill had completely run out of resources. Great, I made a few quick adjustments to get this going again and decided I'd earn a little break. And that's when I tested out what happens if I finally threw one of these mysterious tennis balls. And guess what? Leo, the dog, chased it. Absolutely adorable. Love that they added this in the game. Fun and games aside though, I finished up donating the last batch of copper wires and officially completed the silo. I ran to tell Auntie, expecting her to be thrilled, but she seemed oddly disappointed. After a few tears and a little bit of a heartfelt chat, she came around. The mission is back on, but first we need to build heavy-duty motors to open these silo doors so we can start work on that rocket. I cleared some space around the area and I did a sensible thing for once. Went to bed early. I decided to focus on the university research. The next goal, to craft the level 2 furnaces. That meant I needed stone, and lots of it. In order to do this, I set up a small mine down by the beach. Whilst there, I did a bit of foraging and stumbled upon an abandoned lighthouse. Mysterious, right? On my way back to town, Cliff intercepted me to announce a brand new job board. Some of those jobs, wow, let's just say I'll be sticking to the easy ones for now. After much deliberation, I decided to pick the buffer project at the university, but again, this is going to require a lot of gears. These things all seem to need a lot of resources. It's becoming a common theme. Naturally, I got caught up in my crafting again and surprise, surprise, ended up working late into the night. The next day was all about automating production for the heavy-duty motors. Thankfully, I managed to feed my small motor line right into the new setup and it actually worked. It wasn't nearly as painful as I expected. Progress felt steady and satisfying. Each gear in motion brought me one step closer to opening those silo doors. I will be the first to admit I am not usually a dog person, but Leo is really starting to grow on me. This morning he trotted over with a tennis ball and we played fetch inside the house. Don't tell Auntie. After that, I spent some time optimizing my copper wire setup and finally hit the maximum throughput. Honestly, I'm not sure why I didn't do this sooner. Feeding 2 furnaces into one assembler, pure genius if I do say so myself. Then came the next big challenge, powering the silo. It took a ridiculous number of windmills to generate the energy I needed, but after a lot of tinkering, the doors opened. Auntie finally opened up too, sharing the real reason why she stopped working on the rocket, and it all started to make sense now. It was an emotional ending to an eventful day, and with that, I called it a night. Me and Auntie needed to have a serious conversation about her preference for decaf coffee. The breakfast theme continued as she took me over to the silo and showed off, or tried to show off, something, but it wasn't quite right. Instead, she sent me off to get a loaf of bread for the toaster. On the way to the bakery, I stopped off to take a job to finish an old broken fridge, but I'm not sure this will be done anytime soon, judging by the requirements here. At the bakery, I was able to buy some bread, and yes, I did buy it and not steal it this time. I finally made it to the university, and Rebecca is able to help me figure out some new parts. However, in order to make electronics, we are going to need to reopen the port to get imports. I gave the bread to Toasty, but still nothing. We're going to have to go back to the cutting board with this one. Cue lots of bread puns, and then suddenly it did seem the bread did work and the robot has disappeared. Maybe he went to be with his toaster friends. I decided to let Toasty roam free today. We'll try and find him another day. Instead, I focused on crafting as many iron plates as possible. I'm going to need a lot of them for the university research. While running through the town, I noticed something delightful. It's officially now summer. There are new flowers, new forageables, and just a whole new vibe. I donated a bunch of iron plates and heavy motors to the university, unlocking new schematics for steel beams, steel cables, and winches. While searching for Toasty, I ran off into Cliff, who told me more about the bridge repair project. Still no sign of my missing little bread robot though. Next, I checked in with Pete about the port situation. Looks like we're going to need to rebuild the lighthouse first. Between you and me, I'm really starting to not like Sabrina. At least I managed to complete the research for the underpass, though Rebecca had already left for the night. She must have better boundaries than I do. New day, new mission. This day I wanted to set up the steel beam production and obviously find Toasty. The first part went great. Steel beams are officially underway. I also remembered to check back in with Rebecca and complete the underpass research. My next focus, the dispenser. I have a feeling this one's going to be a total game changer. Still no sign of Toasty though, so off I went exploring, and I thought I'd try venturing into the caves. This was a big mistake. The adorable little sprites or slimes turned out to be tiny traitors and promptly knocked me unconscious. Lesson learned, don't go into the caves. Defeated but not discouraged, I spent the rest of the day cleaning up around the silo, and oh by the way, we're officially back to 0 days without an accident. Whoops. Still no sign of Toasty. I'm starting to worry that he has been abducted by aliens. On the bright side, Dottie's florist was finally open, so I treated myself to a little daisy. A girl just needs some flowers sometimes. I also powered up to the mines to see what would happen and immediately panicked and ran back out. So yeah, my experience from yesterday is still haunting me. Brave explorer I am not. Here's hoping Toasty returns soon. I really want my bread-based companion back. Another rainy day, but thankfully the dispenser research is complete. This item is going to make life so much easier. Then came my biggest epiphany ever. It's a toaster. Of course he would be in the bakery. Toasters love bread. How did I not see this sooner? I feel like an absolute numpty. I made my way straight over to the bakery, and there he was, in the basement, chilling with all the bread. I'm officially in love with Toasty. Not only does he help me get around faster, he only speaks in bread recipes. Truly, bread is the way to my heart. With the dispenser ready, I started making deliveries for the rocket. Next up, figuring out how to make winches. Thankfully, having dispensers made this process so much smoother. My next mission is to gather 500 steel beams and get that lighthouse shining again. I took Toasty for a spin, and wow, you can demolish everything in seconds. When I say everything, I mean everything. Residents, watch out. I don't think they were too happy about this. The rest of the day was spent upgrading old machinery with the new dispensers, especially since I needed a lot of gears. I'm finally getting close to finishing the steel beams, so naturally I decided to ramp up production and look at them fly. At the same time, I'm trying to gather small motors and gears for more university research, a little bit of a waiting game here. While waiting for the resources to process, I took the opportunity to gift some of the local residents. Not everyone was thrilled with my gift choices, but it still felt like a good deed. I delivered some stone for the bridge repair and then realized I had a small stash of motors tucked away. Unfortunately, it was too late to turn them in. Toasty has taken a liking to eating lampposts. I suppose that I can use them to light up the farm. I'm sorry, town. They are not going to be happy when they realize all of their lampposts have disappeared. If my maths is correct, I finally have enough for the lighthouse repair. Pete and I wasted no time, and at the dead of night, we completed the lighthouse, ready for deliveries to start arriving. On to day 20, I wasted no time and headed straight to the university. First up, I completed the buffer and started on the cable cranes. Looks like these will be essential for the port. My steel beams are now ready, just waiting on some heavy motors. Fingers crossed they'll be ready when I need them. I hopped back on Toasty and wow, the way he walks really does remind me of a crab. It's kind of like a crab toaster robot thing. Very interesting. Turns out I was right. Time to learn these cranes as quickly as possible. The loaders and loaders may also be important too, but oof, just look at that steel beam requirement. Only one way to speed things up, ramp up steel beam production. In the lighthouse, I found some new gloves. Leo will definitely appreciate these. Of course, true to form, I arrived at the big ship with a cargo of stuff but no proper tools. A quick dash home for a winch and a little crane crafting, and ta-da! Computer parts are now mine. I sound like an evil genius. Next challenge is to figure out how to get the chips from them. It's been a while since I last had a letter, but Angela broke the silence with a job for me. Steel beam production is improving though, and somehow I managed to get Toasty stuck. Great planning, Emma. Once free, it was time to find Angela and make some donations. Her job seemed simple enough, get planks and repair the boardwalk, and I got to work pretty quickly with Leo helping, or possibly hindering, I'm not sure. The boardwalk was fixed and the repair led to a weird pond full of rusted parts. Naturally, I tossed a few more in there for good measure. On the way to Angela, I checked out my computer haulage system, and it's not bad for a day's work. I expected Angela at the inn, but instead there was an angry Sabrina. Because I am obviously a nice person, I offered to repair her radio antenna. With that done, I finally reported to Angela. She didn't know much about the pond, but the coins were very much appreciated. I may have totally forgotten about Cliff's bridge repair, but progress is finally happening, slowly but surely. Thankfully, Sabrina's radio antenna was easy to make. Turns out I need to save the computer towers and monitors to unlock Tier 4 for the rocket research. I placed the antenna down for Sabrina, but the tavern was closed. I'll have to check in with that ray of sunshine later. I acquired yet more computer parts and attempted to unlock Tier 4, but so nearly there. Sabrina was casually waiting on the beach. Mission complete. Maybe she'll like me now? Just in the nick of time, I gathered enough computer pieces, and now she tells me we need to unlock a recycler. Honestly, that probably should have come first, but it shouldn't be too hard to unlock, she says. 7 days left of this 30-day challenge, and it's time to get this rocket moving. This morning was productive. I completed the research on the recycler and started work on the sorter. The job board refreshed and I picked up a task from Tia. Then it hit me. I have enough coins to upgrade my backpack. A whole extra line. Thank you, Cliff. Setting up the recyclers was easier than I expected. Just like that, I had logic chips and plastic scraps flowing. To prepare for the circuit boards, I created a mini assembly line, then headed to Rebecca to complete the sorter research. I told you today was going to be a productive one. I decided to take a break from level 4 stuff and instead chose to upgrade my furnaces, only to realize how much was actually required. Great. While waiting for the circuit boards to finish, I decided to earn some coins. I delivered the winches for Pete and heavy motors to Tia. Honestly, I have no idea what Tia, the teenager, is planning to do with all of these motors. I donated some stone to the university and steel to the silo and then called it a day. Enough hard work for one day. The next morning, I woke up with just enough circuit boards for the silo, so off I went to start donating them and waited as they made their way down into the hole. The air was tense, and I was excited to see the results. But alas, again, things didn't go as planned, and the rocket wasn't quite right. Deflated is an understatement. Auntie, sensible as ever, decided that we should try again tomorrow. Overnight, Morgan couldn't sleep, and magically by morning, the rocket was fixed with a little bit of hard work. Elise, the town astronomer, arrived with a proposal. She needs help repairing the observatory at the top of town. We unlocked the requirements for the next level of the rocket. My goodness, there are so many new things I've never heard of yet, like servos. This is going to be interesting. For now, I decided to put the rocket aside and focus on the observatory, and wait, it's fall. I love the colours of the ground and the trees, gorgeous. I filled up on coal and made a quick drop off at the university, then headed to see Elise. Step 1, power up the observatory. She allowed me inside, and wow, this is stunning. What a beautiful area. To repair the lens, we need quartz, which can only be obtained from the mines. As we've learned before, this was not a smooth task previously. I entered without Toasty at first and quickly realized that that was a mistake. Not only could he help, but he could also deal with the little bugs. I stayed in the mines for a while and collected quite a bit of quartz, and even found a chest containing a special hat. Perfect, this will definitely help light the way. The next morning, I received some mail. The rail service is temporarily broken. That doesn't sound good. I wonder who they'll turn to for help. Me, of course. Before heading to the train station, I made a donation to the museum to help improve the furnaces. For my next project, I decided on the filtering splitter, another big undertaking. This town really is falling to pieces one little bit at a time. The rest of the day was spent in the mines, where I had a reasonably successful outing, no deaths and 50 quartz collected. Before I knew it, it was bedtime. Day 27 was all about glass lenses. They were taking longer than I expected, so I started thinking ahead about stage 2 of the rocket and those mysterious servo things. Steel beam production is going so well that the production actually stopped because the chests were full, which is perfect since I needed 800 steel beams for the rocket. As darkness fell, I quickly gathered materials to fix the train, and just like that, it was back up and running again. As a bonus, I can now have materials delivered via the train. Very efficient. Glass lenses are still taking forever, but I really want to complete the observatory before the end of this challenge. I realized that it was Sunday and the university was actually closed, so I couldn't finish the research for the filtering splitter yet. Guess I'll have to return tomorrow. I did manage to tweak the ore shipment at the train station, opting for copper ore. Of course, the town demands never end. After a full day of tinkering, I hit 50 lenses, enough to celebrate the completion of the observatory. Honestly, it's beautiful, but I can feel something else is going to be looming on the horizon here. The next morning, Dottie arrived at my door all flustered. She and Tia had had another argument and she had run off. Our mission, track her down. Now where would a teenager hide? While searching, I popped into the observatory and discovered a new rocket blueprint, including the mysterious oxygen tanks. More research is now underway. I spoke to Sabrina about the antenna and realized maybe I judged her too harshly. She's going through her own stuff, and perhaps we're more alike than I thought. The only place left to check for Tia was in the mines, and my suspicions were correct. After dodging some signs, we quickly returned to her home to a grateful Dottie. I also spoke to Rebecca about inspiring Tia with some blueprints. In all that excitement, I lost Toasty. Hopefully he can make his way home tomorrow. And just like that, it's the final day. Rebecca delivered on her promise about Tia's blueprints. Thankfully, Toasty had returned safe and sound, and I donated a small fortune of stone, and now my coal is doubly efficient. I popped in to give Dottie the blueprint for Tia, and then had a really wholesome cutscene, Tia discovering her passion. In return, Dottie gave me the cutest hat. Helping others really does pay off. I tinkered around in my factory and somehow managed to lose Toasty yet again. How do you lose a giant yellow robot? I managed it on foot to the observatory, almost with enough copper bars, and I randomly found Toasty outside the florist. I don't remember leaving him here. I grabbed Watts while he was on a stroll to discuss the train station exports yet again, and my final task before bed, I managed to unlock the research at the observatory, starting the process for the chemical processing. It was finally time for one last ride on Toasty to head back home. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Don't forget to check out the description below where I have put that link. Let me know what you think about this game. Is this something that you're going to be picking up or maybe passing on? I've really enjoyed the game so far. I think if you are a fan of farming sims and you like that grind, but you want something a bit different, then this could be a great option for you. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.